Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man, at your service. How are you all? I'm doing very well. Cheers you all. And let's raise one, if you've got it, let's raise one to yet another cherished movie star, another fabulous character actor that we've lost again. Tinseltown is shedding its stars just so often these days. It seems like every week I'm doing an obituary or a tribute to somebody that we've known and loved, and it's just, I can't believe it. The Grim Reaper is working overtime and it's tragic. I mean, not only in the days since John Saxon died, the great John Saxon, we did a review obituary for him, we lost Alan Parker, the filmmaker Alan Parker, for Commitments, Angel Heart. He went. And then yesterday we got the news that Wilford Brimley, yes, big, gruff, cosy, cuddly grizzly bear with his big walrus moustache and his big glasses, Wilford, and his pudgy face, Wilford Brimley, who looks, by the way he looks in the film Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme is exactly the way that I remember my dad. That's how he looks. And my dad hasn't gone yet. Big Kilt Papa's still around. Although he looks very, very gaunt now. He doesn't look anything like Wilford Brimley. But we all know him from The Thing as Blair, and we'll come on to that in a bit more detail. But Wilford Brimley, aged 85 he went, 85 years old. This was a guy that, don't be taken in by that portly, stature and his no neck and, looking like some little old man. This guy was an expert rodeo rider. He was an expert horse trainer, horse rider. Throughout the 50s and 60s, he was not only riding horses for Hollywood westerns, a lot of TV shows like Gunsmoke and that sort of thing. He would, once he became a little bit, because he was diabetic as well, and he spent his lifetime campaigning for better awareness of, as he would say it, diabetes. And also, he would be the front man for Quaker Oats as well. But he began to put on a bit too much weight. So instead of riding the horses and doing stunts on the horses, he then would put the shoes on the horses for Hollywood. And he then got like a kind of long-standing role in TV's The Waltons. And I think Ralph Waite, who plays Papa Walton, was saying to him, look, you need to really branch out from this. You've got such a character, so much colour, vibrance. You could get into movies, And he took it on board and he did it. But even prior to all this, he was an ex-US Marine. He was also a bodyguard to Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes, in a little known fact, would only employ Mormons as bodyguards. Even though he wasn't a Mormon himself, but Wilford Brimley was. So he was employed there and apparently had a great time. But he then progressed into movies and he would play fantastic supporting roles in so many fantastic films and across the board with genre. Obviously horror and science fiction, comedy, thrillers, action movies. Again, one of these guys who didn't seem to, I'm only going to play a detective, I'm only going to play a cowboy. Well, he did do whatever. He played a beleaguered nuclear engineer in The China Syndrome, which is actually his big break. What was that, 1979, I think it was? And you would see him, he represented the working class, the underdog, harassed by bureaucracy, let down by their chain of command, let down by authority and leadership, and made scapegoats of. And he epitomised that. And that brought a lot of attention. But he would play captains and lieutenants and detectives and all sorts of stuff like this. And then of course, John Carpenter, I need you. For Dr Blair, yes. Again, we'll leave that for the time being. But he was also one of these guys that, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but certainly in his case it was probably a blessing. But he looked a hell of a lot older than he really was. Look at Cocoon. He turned 50 whilst filming Cocoon. He was a good 20 years younger than all the rest of his brethren, all the cast that were all representing all these geriatrics, grandfathers and grandmothers at the rest home, the ones who all encounter the swimming pool, the elixir, because the cocoons are in there, the alien cocoons, and it gives them a new lease of life. He was 20 years younger, but he looked just as old as them. And again, he is the grandfatherly face of compassion, of love, of that never-ending youthful spirit, of a joy de vivre, in life itself. And he epitomised that completely. He would often say that, because in reality, he's very brash, very gruff. He had that kind of, that folksy, tells it like it is demeanour. And but he said, I love people. I like to be around people. People think I don't, because this is the way that I speak. And yet he was also a prankster. On the set of many movies, he'd be leaving whoopee cushions for people to sit on. He'd be having a great old time at, the rest of his cast and crew's expense, just having a right old laugh, because he was a good old boy. Salt Lake City, Utah, he was born. And I believe that's where he spent the last days of his life as well, back hometown. He also tweeted on the day before he died about possible names he'd have as a wrestler. And I think because everyone loved the way that he said diabetes, said diabetes, and he'd be like, Wild Diabetes, Wild Diabetes. That was going to be his wrestler's name. This is the day before he died. If you've got one, raise it for him now. And but as I say, action movies as well. Look at Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he plays Uncle Duvet. Not duvet that you get under, although he looks just as cuddly and cosy, to be honest. And he's out got his own moonshine, his hooch still out in the air, the bayou and all that. And of course, Chance Boutreau, who's incurred the wrath of Lance Henriksen and Arnold Vosloo, who are in John Woo's American, I'm going to bring Hong Kong cinema to America. And it didn't really work out that well, but we still love Hard Target. And it's a reworking of The Most Dangerous Game, where humans are the prey of hunters. And they tend to be US Army veterans as well, who are down and out. They've got no income, they've got no life left, but they're offered this chance by Lance Henriksen. If you can make it so far, you've got $1 million or whatever the hell it is. But no one's going to make it that far. But they tread on the toes of Chance Boutreau, who's an ex-Special Forces guy and looks just like Jean-Claude Van Damme, with the Cajun long straggly hair. And what's wrong with long straggly hair? Nothing at all. But he goes out to Uncle Duvet and he's like, I've got some bad men following me. And Uncle Duvet goes, I know, I can smell them. He must have been trained the same way that John Matrix was trained for Commando. Stay downwind of them. Your air current will pick them off. Air current? You think I could smell them coming? I did. And he's making all this fantastic hooch. And he says something like, what is it now? Good whiskey made Jackrabbit slap the bear. But he does ride off with Yancey Butler, who's the love interest in this movie. And he's riding his horse, because he is an expert horse rider. He looks comical on it because he's kind of portly, but you see him firing explosive arrow-tipped arrows and all this sort of stuff. Like, explosive arrow-tipped arrows? Who writes this goddamn script? You know what I mean. But so he didn't mind appearing in films that people were going. I remember after seeing The Thing, and then he's going to be in Hard Target. Huh? As what? And then you saw him like, oh my god! And he gets down that sort of gold-plated shotgun in his shack, which is Chance Boutreau's favourite shotgun. And you put a dust off it like that. And Uncle Duvet is just like kind of like, it's almost seducing this shotgun. But he's wonderful, wonderful, giving sage old wisdom to Robert Redford in The Natural and in Brubaker as well. 2 Redford movies there. But he'd also appear in the likes of 10 to Midnight, which was like an early 80s thriller cum slasher movie for Charles Bronson. It was a Charlie Bronson vehicle, but Charlie Bronson didn't do a great deal in it. And in fact, most of the film's given over to the bad guy, which was actually pretty good. And the bad guy, in like what would be a sort of a dry run for Christian Bale in American Psycho, pumped up to hell and showing off most of his body as well. This guy would be nude for a lot of the movie as well, like. But Wilford Brimley would play the, again, giving folksy advice to Charles Bronson, who'd just fucking ignore it anyway and do his own bloody thing, take the law into his own hands. But he'd be the captain in charge of, you know, this assignment. He'd also appeared in Remo Unarmed and Dangerous, or I think it's just called Remo Williams in America, which was a failed attempt to bring the celebrated Destroyer series of action novels into the movies, but they kind of toned violence down and made it a bit more family friendly and a bit more spiritual, because it's Remo Williams, Fred Ward it plays this copper who they stage his death, they fake his death so they can resurrect him and train him by this spiritualistic sort of mystical martial arts, so he can run through the air basically and dodge bullets and stuff like, and run up tight ropes, I don't know, loads of weird stuff he can do. But he's going to be a presidential bodyguard come assassin, this sort of secret weapon by this covert operations group headed up by Wilford Brimley. Yes, see, he was always there behind the scenes, pulling strings, manipulating things. Another little known fact about him as well, that when the Iron Curtain came down in 1989, he almost single-handedly took it upon himself to get something like 40, maybe 50 Romanian orphans adopted in America. Again, for no grandeur of his own, but something that he sought out, and he did it, his own crusade. So very talented, very colourful, roguish sort of guy. So he's got albums out, great guitarist, he could sing as well, like, I mean, he's got that gruff and that accent, you know, that cowboy twang he's got. And you hear that exceptionally well in The Thing, of course. You're hearing a little bit more music from The Thing here, where he's the guy that, it's so clever the way he does this, because he starts off, he's kind of the guy you trust most of all, you know, heart, lungs, liver, appear to be normal. See what we're dealing with here, hang on a second, I can make this a bit more authentic. See what we're dealing with here is a life form that imitates other life forms. You know, it's not dog, it's imitation. And I love the way that he's touching the burnt remains of the thing in the kennel, and he's doing this. Because if one small particle of the thing is enough to take over somebody else, is this where your assimilation begins, Dr. Blair? But he is wonderful. You know, get hold of somebody, get hold of anybody, we gotta report this mess. And of course, how long we get on with that dog? What was he doing wandering around the camp all day? I don't know, you know. What the hell are you looking at me like that for? I don't know. Maybe it's nothing. It's nothing at all. And then he does his fantastic projection on the archaic computer about world assimilation. Horribly prophetic, really, about considering what's happened in the world right now with COVID. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. And he then, when he realises, 77,000 hours from now, whole world assimilation, and in his drawer he's got the revolver, which you'll see him use. He's beaten poor Windows, Thomas Waits. He's beaten him up already. Again, he looks like the kind of guy, he's just a little squat fella, balding, big chubby face on him. A sort of cherubic yet curmudgeonly doctor of pathology and biology and astrophysics and whatever the hell they're all studying down there in the asshole of the world. God only knows. And he's beaten him up and he's chopped up all the radio equipment. And then he's got the revolver, and in a miraculous feat of ballistic marksmanship, I don't know, he manages to miss the big open doorway and all the people that are in it and shoot the door frame 6 times. I don't think I could do that if I tried, but he does. He does. You buy any of this voodoo bullshit, Blair? And like, so that's Childs talking to him there, and Blair just sits there and he's looking at bits of the that they found from the crashed flying saucer, and he just looks up. He already knows what's going on. And then when he transforms, of course, you know, the scary moment when he gets Gary, Station Commander Gary, Donald Moffat, and puts his hand into his face. If you look, he's missed one of the finger holes in the face there that Rob Bottin, special effects guy, had put into the face. His fingers missed it, so you can see a hollow of it, like, but it only adds to the really ghastly nature of it. But the way that, as he's quoted as saying, you know, he didn't like the thing. He thought it was a stinker. And he wasn't, whenever John Carpenter called action, he was like, oh, what the hell am I going to do with this? I'm in deep water here. Just didn't understand it. But to his credit, he still gives an exemplary performance. A performance that absolutely nails that mystery, horror, and the doomed fatality of the thing, and its enduring, pure legacy of being a masterpiece. It's anchored by all the cast, but obviously Kurt Russell, but Blair, because he does change. Half my audience just left. They're going, what? Blair's the thing? I didn't know that. I haven't watched the film yet. So this is a little playlist of music from his movies, and this is 10 to Midnight. This is the Charles Bronson actioner. But again, you've got that marvellous moment where they've locked him in the tool shed. They've drugged him up. He's been smacked twice in the head by McCready. He's knocked him out, and he's there, and he's all in his coats and all that. Like, and there's not a bottle of J&B. It's a bottle of vodka, isn't it, that he gives him. I don't know to trust anymore. I know what you mean, Blair. Why don't you just trust in the Lord? And then as McCready's leaving, and Blair's all hunched over, and Wilford Brimley just says magnificently, "Watch Clark, watch him close. Do you hear we?" And you go, I know you've been beaten about the head, and you've been doped up, and you're drinking vodka there, but what did you say there? Do you hear we? But it's genius when you think about it. Whether it's a mistake, whether it is he's just doing a slurred voice because the character demands it. But the thing isn't one thing, it's many things. So I know it's not meant, but it's nice to view it in that kind of context. Do you hear we? Because there's plenty of us here. Every little part of me is its own individual. It's just genius stuff. And and to allow his face to be completely, moulded. I must have sat for hours getting Rob Bottin to do that for when the big Blair monster comes out. Like, oh, fantastic stuff. What else have we got here? Well, again, Cocoon. This is a guy, again, that cares about looking 20 years older. And then in Cocoon the Return, they'd come back because all these do go off into space. Here's James Horner's magnificent, exciting chase music, which ends up with big euphoria when they get away with it. They get the cocoons, and they get to the boat, and they get to the mothership, and it's all great stuff, isn't it? They do say that there's what they call the Brimley line, and because he is so much younger than everybody else, and yet looked the same age as all these people, that there's a point at which you cross the Brimley line. That means you can't play people of a certain age anymore, but you can play older people. The Brimley line. Sadly, he crossed that a lot younger than he should have done. Didn't do him any harm though, did it? When all said and done. He'd also appear in Take the High Road, High Road to China, which I started this video off. You could hear John Barry's tragic yet fantastically emotional and wonderful score for what is a film which I personally cannot stand. Tom Selleck, Bess Armstrong. Bess Armstrong is she stands to make a fortune out of her father, inventor father's inheritance that she's going to get from him, because he's gone missing. So she hires O'Malley, Tom Selleck, who flies a biplane in 1920s, alcoholic, down on his luck. They've got to go and find her father, because if they don't find him alive, then his business partner, Robert Morley, is going to get everything and she'll get nothing. And of course, their adventure takes them through Nepal and Afghanistan, into China and all this, and they'll encounter Brian Blessed as some Nepalese warlord. But they're going to find her father, Wilford Brimley, out in the wilds of China, where they've got to depose another warlord, a Chinese warlord. I mean, he brings a bit of gravity and old school charm to what is a film which is meant to be. Tom Selleck was meant to be Indiana Jones. That got screwed up there. So everyone seemed to try their damnedest to give him heroic roles which would take off for him. And, it didn't really work. He had Lassiter as well, he had this. This is a really poor film, folks. I know it's got its fans out there, but despite having a lot of biplane action and, charm and romance and heroism, it just falls completely flat until Wilford comes into it. And of course, we have the score from John Barry, which I think I'm going to play a bit more of it now. Let's go on to... Oh dear. Suddenly I think this could be a mistake. You know what I'm like when I get emotional with certain music. And to John Barry's endless credit, he gave a score which this film did not deserve. Yes, there's Born Free, you can hear Born Free in there, which is John Barry. You can hear Dances with Wolves in there as well. You can also hear On Her Majesty's Secret Service, James Bond. It's just wonderful stuff. But it does capture the wide open expanse of the landscape, and that in itself is a great gift for someone like Wilford Brimley, who rode the plains, who rode out and lived a very, very full and colourful life. Lived it his own way, did his own thing. A couple of controversial moments in his life as well. He was a staunch advocate of gambling. He tried to fight some of the state laws to get gambling introduced into certain areas. Also, cockfighting, which was illegal. He campaigned bitterly, for most of his life, to get that legalised. So I mean, you've got elements like that, but the goodness in the man absolutely far outweighs all of that. Saving all those Romanian orphans, and just that dignity, gruff, fake curmudgeonly attitude that he would extol in so many of his roles. You could see the little charm in his eyes, the twinkle there, the cherubic sort of smile. What a wonderful, wonderful guy. Fabulous actor. There's such a range of movies, and playing against his body type, he didn't care. Hard target, he's fighting everybody, he's firing arrows, he's galloping through the swamplands and the Mardi Gras graveyard, battling henchmen. Wonderful stuff. So he didn't mind. He may have been a little bit outspoken and not as appreciative of certain movies, but that didn't mean that he wasn't going to give 150% to his performances and to all the people making that film. He was going to give everything he possibly could to it. A tremendous actor, and he'll be much missed indeed. In fact, I've seen some of the tweets that have been sent from many people who've worked with him, and very, unbelievably flattering. So, folks, what did I have here? I wrote a few little notes, and I think I did well. I didn't have to refer to them once. But yeah, so to all the people who thought, oh, he's Blair from The Thing, he's so much more as well. But Blair will forever be the role that cements him in people's minds. A pivotal role in a masterpiece of a film. Without him, the whole thing becomes unglued. The whole thing unravels. And the way that he transforms, and I don't mean physically transforms, I mean the way that he, as a character, assimilates every situation and bends it towards what he needs and what he wants from it and what he knows is going on that no one else seems to realise. And it's fun to watch the film again and again and again and to think, when did he get assimilated? Does he know at this stage what's going on? It's not Fuchs. It ain't Fuchs. How do you know that? Because you are the thing yourself. Yeah. He's got that noose hanging there. What a great moment. Look, come on, man. You know, I'm all better now. Look, funny things. I hear funny things out here. Look, I'm all right now, so you gotta let me come back inside. We'll see. They just shut the door. Good whiskey. Make Jack Rabbit slap the bear. He's awesome. So, folks, there you go. And fittingly enough, we're ending with a theme from The Thing as well. In fact, we're going to end on the main theme from The Thing. As I say, these tributes are coming far too quickly. And you just don't seem to have time to take breath before you get the more tragic news. So, I mean, people actually message me all the time, say, oh, have you heard this, have you heard this? And in the case of Wilford Brimley, I actually hadn't heard the news. So when it popped up on a comment, I was like, what? No. I hadn't heard anything at all. And then I looked into it, it just goes on and on. And sadly, it's going to continue to do so. Because it's the cycle of life and death. Anyway, folks, don't worry about us, because we're going to be fine. Let's just wait here for a while. See what happens. Please, y'all, take it easy out there. Be happy. Be happy, be healthy. Keep it Celted, keep it Celted. And I'm going to see you all sooner than you know it. Laters. R.I.P. Wilford Brimley. See, this is where editing skills would really, really come in handy. Wilford, I'm sure you're laughing about that there. But I found the whoopee cushion though. So you didn't get me with that one.